Hi guys, I'm Brian from Pintech. Some of you know me from the forum as Hope Drums. We've gotten several emails and calls from you guys needing suggested settings for your Pintech kit used with the Alesis DM5 module. Hopefully today I'll be able to answer some of those questions. The DM5 is probably one of the oldest modules currently in production. It is a very reliable module, but when compared to most of the modules out there today, it has several drawbacks. The DM5 module does not support dual zone features at all. What that means for you is you can't use a chokeable crash, you can't use a ride cymbal with separate bell and bow sounds, and you can't use a snare drum that has a rim shot. Now there are some accessories you can purchase that will allow you to use those features, such as a snare with the rim shot, and I'll cover those shortly. Another negative aspect to the DM5 is it does not have an auxiliary in. What that means is if you're using a DM5, you're not going to be able to plug in your iPod or a CD player and play along to your own music. The kit that I'm using today is a pretty standard Pintech kit. It features two 10-inch and one 12-inch single zone concert cast toms, all of which have the EZ Tune system. The snare drum is a 12-inch acoustic snare, also with the EZ Tune system. Kick drum is an 8-inch gig kick. The hi-hat is a 10-inch PC cymbal with the gig control pedal. My crash cymbal is a 14-inch dual zone PC series crash, and then I'm using a 16-inch PC series dual zone ride. As you can hear, with the DM5 you're not able to get the separate bell and bow sound. The two biggest questions we get are how to set up the snare drum and how to set up the kick drum. The biggest problem people have with their kick drum is double triggering. Generally what causes that is people who bury the beater in the head while they're playing. Basically what that means is when you're striking the drum, you're holding that beater pressed into the head itself. It's not a real good technique. You wouldn't do that with any other drum. That would be like forcing your drumstick into the head each strike and holding it there. Essentially what you're doing is muffling your kick drum. There are ways with your module you can work around that issue. The best thing is with the DM5 is using the noise feature, and what that is it cuts out any secondary vibrations. It's commonly known as a threshold in other modules. One thing that I found that helped me out with my kick drum, I loosened up the head approximately one complete turn from the factory setting, and that cut back considerably on the rebound. Now, like I said earlier, you can use a dual zone snare drum with separate head and rim using the Alesis DM5, but you're going to have to use a Y adapter. I use the HOSA brand, and I'll show you it here in just a moment. But another tip that I found is helpful when adjusting or tuning the snare drum with the Alesis DM5 or any other module is utilize the EZ Tune system. What I do to keep the head and the rim separate when I'm making the changes in the DM5 module, I turn one or the other off. That way I know whichever one I'm working on, I won't accidentally switch over and be working on the head when I'm thinking I'm working on the rim. So I'll turn one or the other off, such as the head, and then that way I know the head is completely dead and the only sound that I'm working on is that rim sound. And when you get ready to do the head, you'll do the same thing. Just turn it off. And of course, the only sound you'll be able to hear is the head sound. Even as you strike the rim hard, the only sound being produced is from the head. Hopefully that'll help you out keeping them separate. Like I said, I do it because sometimes with them being on the same drum, crosstalk can falsely trigger the other, and you can be adjusting parameters of the rim when you think you're adjusting the head. Now, the brand of Y adapter I prefer to use is the HOSA brand. They're available at just about any music store. They're color coded. That's the good thing about them. You've got the black for the tip, which is the head of the drum, and then you've got color coded red, and it's also labeled ring for the rim of the drum. What you'll do is take the stereo cable coming out of your drum, plug it into the female end of the adapter, plug the tip in to number 3 input on the module. That's the snare drum input. And I plug the red one, the tip, which is the rim, into the jack number 4. Now generally that is tom 1. The only thing I do is I'll move tom 1 a little further down somewhere on the back of the module. You can plug it in anywhere you want to because you can assign the sounds. Just because this is normally tom 1 doesn't mean it has to always be tom 1. Okay, now we'll cover some of the buttons on the module. The first one is the store button. That is the save button. Anytime you make changes to your drum kit or individual drums, such as changing the voice, changing the pitch, or any of the trigger settings, you'll use the store button to save those settings. The note chase button is the next one. Generally, I always keep that button on. You can tell it's on when it's lit up. What the note chase button does, it allows you to strike a drum and the module will always follow to that particular drum. It's great when you're making adjustments. For example, if you're working with tom 1 or 2, changing the pitch or changing different settings. If you're working on tom 1 and you're ready to go to tom 2, if the note chase button is pressed, the only thing you have to do is strike tom 2, and the drum module automatically changes over to that instrument. The voice button is where you'll go to assign different sounds. For example, if tom 1 is a regular tom and you want it to be a timbali, you'll press the voice button and then you'll scroll through until you find the correct voice that you're looking for. The tune button, what that is it allows you to change the pitch of an instrument. Say tom 1 is a little higher than you want it to be, you'll press the tune button to lower the pitch. The mix button, that's where you go to make changes to the volume of each drum. For example, if tom 2 is louder than toms 1 or 3, you will press the mix button to turn the volume down on that one individual tom. This is where you'll also go to access the pan feature. In plain English, what pan means is how much sound is coming out which side of the speaker, either left or right. Generally, the module is already set up so that your snare and your kick are panned to the center, which means they come equally out both the left and right speakers. You can change that. A lot of people prefer to set it up so that if you're right-handed, your right-hand floor tom comes more out your right speaker than it does the left. Same thing with your high tom, or say with your hi-hat, because it's on your left side. Most people would want it panned out more to the left. The output button, that controls whether the output of the module is coming out the main or out the auxiliary. That's generally used when you're using the module live or with an amplifier. That way you know which jacks on the back of the module the sound is coming out of.